In this video, we'll take a quick look at Kasten's support for creating durable backups of raw block mode persistent volumes. In Kubernetes, the default configuration for new PVCs is file system mode, meaning my underlying storage volume is going to be formatted with a file system, typically ext4 or XFS, which is then mounted as a path within my pod, based on that pod's spec. Block volume mode, on the other hand, is exactly what it sounds like, exposing a raw block device to a pod. This can provide significant performance benefits by eliminating additional file system overhead, but it requires that your workload, your container image, knows how to read from and write to that device. Let's start with a fast-growing use case for leveraging block mode PVCs in Kubernetes. In this environment, I have an OpenShift cluster running OpenShift Data Foundations, OpenShift Virtualization powered by KubeVirt, and Kasten operators all installed from the OpenShift Operator Hub. I can see that OpenShift Data Foundations is providing Ceph-based block and file storage to my cluster. Now let's try creating a virtual machine and take a closer look at those storage options. Drilling down into the settings for our VM's root disk, we can see the default configuration for our PVC, including a read-write-many access mode and block volume mode as the optimal settings. Hypothetically, if I were limited to a data protection solution that lacked the ability to export block mode volumes, I can see that in order to mount a file system formatted PVC, I would be limited to read-write-once access. But why would I care? Well, if I return to my list of VMs, we see I've already provisioned 2 VMs to 2 separate namespaces. Hopping over to my console, I can see that my app1 VM has been configured with a file system-based read-write-once PVC, and that my app2 VM is configured with the preferred block-based read-write-many configuration. For this use case, the why we care goes beyond file system overhead. We're talking about a cherished capability of virtualization administrators worldwide: live migration between nodes. In order to live migrate a KubeVirt-based virtual machine, as I'm showing here, that VM must be provisioned with read-write-many storage, which we just saw is only supported in Ceph RBD when using block mode storage. So now that we know our why, let's take a look at how Kasten can ensure that that data gets properly protected. Moving over to my Kasten dashboard, I can see that all of my application namespaces have been discovered on this cluster, and that my app2 namespace includes both my VM, a separate Nginx deployment, and some additional Kubernetes native resources. From this screen, we can quickly create a new policy. We'll say that we want to perform daily backups with default retention. And most importantly, I need to ensure that these local snapshots are being exported off of our cluster. In this case, to an S3 bucket, my Kasten backups. Before I run my policy, I also need to perform a one-time annotation to any storage classes that are being used to provision block mode volumes, simply to indicate to Kasten that block mode export is supported. And in case you don't trust strangers on the internet, because you shouldn't, we'll validate that our S3 bucket is currently empty as well. Looks good, so rather than wait until 8 p.m., I'm going to go ahead and kick off a one-time manual backup now. Once the local snapshot is complete, I can see there is now a dynamically provisioned block mode data mover pod in my Kasten namespace. This pod is bound to a block mode PVC, which we can see was provisioned from the local volume snapshot, ensuring consistency between my local snapshots and my exported backup copy. After a few minutes, our initial export has successfully completed, and I can see within my Kasten dashboard that I now have access to both local and remote restore points for my application. Finally, drilling down into the My Kasten Backups bucket, I can validate our repository has been populated with the compressed and encrypted block volume data, ready to restore my workload in case of a cyber attack, disaster, or simply wanting to migrate it to another environment. So if you're in need of backup, DR, or app mobility for OpenShift virtualization or any other Kubernetes workload, visit the link on screen to learn how you can get started with Kasten for free today. Thanks for watching.